Hello and welcome to day 3 of P7 Prepare to Pass session being organized by ACCA Pakistan. I'm Kashif Kamran, your tutor. The agenda of day 3 is to focus on the block 3 of the syllabus, which is evidence. Evidence is another core area of the syllabus and a very important part of a 100 marks paper. Now, just before starting with the agenda for the day, which is to discuss evidence and which is to build concepts on evidence along with the past papers, let's first do a recap of the key learnings we had from the session yesterday, which was ethical and professional issues. Now, in the session yesterday, where the focus was on the ethical and professional issues, there were numerous queries from the attendees of the webinar. To a certain extent, they were very clear about identifying the ethical and professional issues, but even post-webinar, I kept getting queries from students over the WhatsApp group about some issues they had about ethical and professional issues. So I want to make things clear within the first 10 minutes. I need to emphasize on the key learning from the topic yesterday and then moving on to the topic for the day 3 today. Now, in terms of the topic yesterday, where our focus was on ethical and professional issues, let's first make a quick key learning on the ethical issues. Now, I did told you yesterday that ethical issues alone can come in the question number 1 of P7, where the examiner would only ask you to identify and explain the ethical issues and also recommend the safeguards or also to recommend the actions. Apart from that, the ethical issues can even be part of a question which contains professional issues. That is the broader question. So a question might ask you, identify and explain the ethical and professional issues. That was a broader question. And I did justify that most of the time when ethics comes with professional together, it is either part of the question 2, which is the mandatory question, or then it is part of the question 4, which is an optional question. Now, when we look at the ethical issues, whether it is coming alone or the ethical issues is coming as part of the question 2 or question 4 with the professional issues, a student should know that ethical issues are what? We had an emphasis on that yesterday, that the ethical issues includes the threats to objectivity, the ethical issue includes the conflict of interest, and the ethical issues includes issues relating to confidentiality. Now, you have to find the ethical issues from the case. Now, the ethical issues gives you a score of 1.5 marks for every issue. Now, when I say every issue, that means if you're identifying self-review, then self-review is one issue. If you identify self-interest, then self-interest is another issue. If you find advocacy, then advocacy is another issue. So every issue or every threat or every conflict of interest will give you 1.5 marks. Now, when you write an issue, when you write an ethical issue, it is binding on you to write a safeguard. Now, when you write a safeguard, which the examiner normally refer as an action, you are scoring 1 mark for the safeguard. Now that means the issue carries 1.5 mark, the safeguard carries 1. Now you need to balance yourself in exam paper. Suppose you're doing a question for like 7 marks and the 7 marks says ethical issues. Now you need to balance yourself. One student can write 4 issues out of the 7 marks and say, okay, 4 issues means 6 marks. 1 action means 7. That's one equation. Another student can say, no, I'll write 3 issues. 3 issue means 4.5 marks, and I'll write 2 actions. That makes me to 5.5. That makes me to closer to 7 marks. 6.5 marks. So you need to balance yourself. You need to be flexible. You have 7 marks. An issue carries 1.5. A safeguard carries 1. So how you will take your 7 marks depends upon you, because in a question there will be many issues. You can identify, if you identify all of them, you might go even in excess of the marks. So you have to be focused on issues and safeguards. And yesterday my terminology was very clear. The ethical issues are like threats. The ethical issues are like conflicts. They are like confidentialities. So more or less the tone of the ethical issue is it's like a threat. So threat is something negative. It's like criticizable. That is an issue. That is an issue which goes into the negative context. I hope you're clear with the key learnings on the ethical issues, whether that is in the first question or whether that is in the question 2 or in the question 4. I need a quick feedback from the attendees of the webinar. I hope you are clear on ethical issues before I move to the key learnings from professional issues. Okay, there's a question from Qasim Abdul Rashid. If I only write issues for 7 marks without safeguard, yes, that itself is fine. Examiner has no such thing in the marking scheme that if you don't write actions, or examiner has no such thing in the marking scheme that certain number of marks are allocated for action. So examiner says, whatever you write, you get marks, but he does not makes a scope limitation that this marks is for action, this marks is for safeguard or for issue. So I think you're flexible on that, Qasim Abdul Rashid. You can go ahead with what you are suggesting. If every one of you are clear, the participants, I'm moving to the next one, which is to discuss the professional issues. Now, yesterday, from the ethical side, when we move to the professional side, professional issues or professional matters, both are interchangeable. Now, when the examiner asks you professional issues and matters, we did had an exercise yesterday, which where I split the professional issues into 3 parts. That the professional issues includes quality control issues. The professional issue includes commercial factors, and the professional issue includes professional behavior. I hope all of you remember that, and all of you have revised your lecture yesterday. Okay, now once you know what's the breakdown of the professional issues, either it's quality, either it's commercial, or it's professional behavior, then obviously you need to look at the case and you need to see, are they present in the case? Are they present in the case? If they are, then you need to write them. Now, I think something which I justified towards the end of the webinar, and something where I got most of the questions from the student, professional issue can be something in the case. In the case, that could be something positive. Positive means that in the case, that could be something being done right. Suppose the question says, is, as we were discussing yesterday, that one of the partners is a qualified actuary. Now, that was something so supportive, that the partner is a qualified actuary means he has competence. Or if I say, for example, the audit started with adequate planning. Now, if I say the audit started with adequate planning, that means that's so good. Audit should start with adequate planning. So that is the right thing. So if something is right and that's given in the case, support it, appreciate it. You need to say, yes, the audit should start with adequate planning. And in the case, the audit is starting with adequate planning. That means the audit team or the audit partner is fully aware of the responsibilities that the audit should start with planning. So support and appreciate, and you take 1.5 marks. There is nothing wrong with it, right? So when there is nothing wrong, you cannot write an action. You cannot write a recommendation for something which is right. So when you're reading the case, there might be so many things in the case which will go on the right track, and you will think, why that is an issue? Please broaden your definition of issue. Issue is something positive or negative in the case study. When you think something is right, the assessor wants your support for right, or the assessor wants your justification for right. The assessor is testing your knowledge. He's testing your knowledge that, do you know this is right? So he wants an answer from you. Do you know this is right? And you justify the assessor. Yes, I know this is right. And why? Okay, now in the case, there could be something negative as well. Like we did so many examples yesterday. The junior working on going concern was such a negative thing. The junior, uh, the manager asked the junior to use a judgmental sample, or the manager asked the junior to review each other work. Now, obviously, that was something which all of you picked yesterday. That is something wrong. So that means you will criticize it. That you will criticize and you will tell assessor this is wrong. And if it is wrong, then you need to tell what is the recommendation, what is the action, what should be done in future. So when you think something is wrong, you're taking 1.5 marks, and when you write in the action, you take 1. So if I am attempting a case which says ethical and professional issues, and I have 7 marks, in a case I can find a threat, I score 1.5 mark. In a case I can find something happening favorable, I score another 1.5 mark. In the case I found that the junior was working on going concern, I will criticize the junior and I'll take another 1.5 mark. Now see where I'm standing. After the 7 marks, I'm standing at 4.5 marks. I wrote one threat, I wrote one positive thing, I wrote one negative thing, that the junior was working on going concern. Now if the junior was working on going concern, I have to tell examiner that the junior can't work on going concern because going concern is a risky area, and I take another 1 mark. So that becomes 4.5, then another 1 mark, 5.5. Then I wrote a threat, self-review threat. Self-review threat, I wrote a safeguard. I should use different teams. See, my marks have gone up to 6.5. So you need to balance. But that's been something I've been repeating from day 1, day 2, today is the day 3, that involve yourself in the case, see the number of marks, and then see what you have to do. Because you need to take the marks and you are flexible on that. The examiner will never say out of the 7 marks, 4 marks is for issues, 3 marks is for action. Examiner will never say that. The examiner has never said that in the marking scheme. Examiner never gives you a blocked marking scheme. He gives you an open, flexible marking scheme. He wants you to be a manager in the case study, and he wants you to take your own decisions. P7 is all about taking your decisions. You are a manager. You need to do justice with manager, position of manager, and you need to come out good with that. So again and again I'm repeating the same point: involve yourself in the case, involve yourself in the case. The more you involve in the case, you will identify so many things in the case study. Some will be on the positive side. The examiner wants you to tell why it is positive. Examiner wants you to tell why audit starts with planning. So if audit starts with planning, that is so good, but the examiner wants you to justify why it starts with planning. So you have to tell, if the audit starts with planning, things will be executed well, the audit will be completed on time, and so on and so forth. I hope this key learning emphasis of the day 2 coming on day 3 must have cleared some of your ambiguities which you had yesterday towards the end of the session. And I hope the participants, the attendees, which I can see right in front of me on the chat window, I hope you are clear now. The ambiguities, some of the ambiguities which were there yesterday and being part of it has been cleared off. Are you much clear on ethical and professional issues? Will you now involve yourself in ethical and professional issues? And will you bring the best results of it? Please look at the case, look at the case, look at the case. Okay, now just before starting on with evidence, which is the agenda for day 3, let me first take a quick look at the questions coming on the chat window for 5 minutes. Sonia Abdullah, if it is written to write actions as well, so is it necessary to write actions, right? Yes, obviously, when the question asks you to write actions, you need to write actions, and actions obviously would be written for something which is wrong, which is criticizable, so you need to write actions. Farooq Maqsood, sir, in the last time, examiner put a whole focus on quality control in question 2. Yes, obviously. Then you need to find all quality control problems. You need to emphasize on the examiner article, which I recommended you yesterday on quality control. You need to know what quality control issues are: lack of planning, lack of direction, lack of supervision, the junior working on a wrong area, the manager didn't review the work. So you need to know the examples coming from the lecture yesterday to attempt a full question on quality control. So that's something unusual. Farooq Maqsood, examiner can do that. I totally agree with the way the examiner said the question. Sam Joy, sir, commercial aspects from business perspective for auditor, or commercial aspects from obviously the audit firm perspective. The audit firm earn income. So Sam, you need to consider the commercial aspect from the view of the audit firm, not from the individual auditor, but from the broader view of the audit firm. Okay, Ifran Jum, sir, please explain the fees issue point from the Renoir company. I think in the Renoir company, the fees was outstanding, and you need to recover the outstanding fees. Yes, outstanding fees is a self-interest. Outstanding fees is even an intimidation threat. So I think the partner called the director to tell him that the fees is outstanding. So that means the partner was aware that he needs to recover the fees. So I would appreciate the partner that he called the director and he tell the director that the fees is outstanding, so on and so forth. Bilal Qureshi, should we write safeguards beneath every ethical issue, or we should make a list of safeguards at the end? No, never put safeguards in the end. Wherever you write an issue, write the safeguard together. Well, don't make a presentation where you write issues first and actions after. That is too childish way of presenting the answer. The better way of presenting the answer is when you write an issue, write the action together. So issue and action goes together in one paragraph. Is it compulsory to write safeguards if it is not mentioned in the requirement? Yes, Sharmila Siddiqui, it is compulsory to write safeguards even if it is not recommended in the requirement. Simon Mazar, when looking at the ethical issue on accepting a new client, do we consider all 5 of the ethical threats, or we consider just the threats of self-review, self-interest, and advocacy? Simon, yes, obviously you will focus on the threats which are present in the case, even if you're accepting a new client. So accepting a new client, like a June 11 question, Wexford, you will focus on the threats present in the case. You will not write any journal threats. You will not write any rote learn threats. How we reduce the fees? How we reduce the fees? Ifra Anjum, I'm not getting that. Can you post that on the WhatsApp group properly? Okay. I hope any questions remaining unaddressed from the topic yesterday, because I need to move to the topic 3. I hope you have a clear picture of ethical and professional issues. Keep practicing, because practice will mean success. If you practice less, you cannot be assured of your success in P7. So please ensure that you practice a lot. At least practice the last 5 attempts ethical and professional issues. At least practice the last 5 attempts ethical and professional issues to be good on ethical and professional issues. I hope all of you are now sound with ethical and professional issues. Is that a yes and no answer from all the attendees? Are you all sound with ethical and professional issues? Okay, Sharmila Siddiqui, please can you post your question on WhatsApp? Okay, Rafi bin Yahya, do also put that request on the WhatsApp group. I'll respond to that. Okay, fine. I'm exiting now from the key learnings from day 2. That means we are now starting with day 3. And the evidence and the focus of the day 3 is evidence and procedures. This is such an important area in P7 exams, evidence and procedures. And when you look at 100 marks paper, they are part of it. Procedures are also part of 100 marks paper. Evidence is also part of 100 marks paper. And you should know how to deal with them. You should know how to deal with procedures. You should know how to deal with evidence. And that is such a scoring opportunity if you keep your concepts crystal clear. Okay, so let's start with concept building and then the papers. I have taken 3 questions in session, and I have put 2 questions for your home assignments. No article, right? It's all about concepts, evidence, and procedures. It's a topic which comes more down from F8. So anyone who is stronger in F8 can perform well into P7 in this area, evidence and procedures. Okay, let's take a start. Okay, let's first attack procedures first, then attack evidence. There are 2 different things in P7, and there are 2 different questions in P7. I hope you know a question on procedure comes differently. A question on evidence comes differently. Let's go one by one and start first with writing procedures. In an exam paper, the examiner normally asks a student to recommend the procedures. Even though if the examiner asks you, describe the procedure, even though if the examiner asks you to explain the procedure, right? Procedure is like a sentence. Procedure is like a statement. Procedure is like you put something in a bullet. I've seen so many students, even though you don't know what procedures are, I'll just come to that. A lot of student starts procedures in like a paragraph form. Procedures cannot be paragraph. Procedures can be like a sentence, 1.5 line, 2 lines. Procedures can be one straightforward sentence and full stop. But yes, it cannot be ambiguous. It cannot be ambiguous. One sentence, if that is perfectly clear, then that is the procedure. But a procedure cannot be ambiguous. Okay, procedures is part of P7, right? I'll be explaining what they are, but irrespective of describe a procedure or explain a procedure or recommend a procedure, the procedures have to be written more in like a sentence. Now, I have seen procedures coming in question 1, the 35 marks question. Normally in the part C or part D, examiner 2 gives you procedures for like 6 to 8 marks. He can, and those procedures in question number 1, those of you who are repeating P7, and even those of you who are attempting P7 for the first time, when the examiner asks procedures in a question number 1, those procedures are focused on accounting issues. Because obviously the question number 1 is on risks. And if the question 1 is on risk, there would be so many accounting issues in the case. So examiner can pick any accounting issue, and that accounting issue then can be converted to writing procedures. So the marking scheme is 1 mark per procedure. Okay, now the procedures can be on anything, right? Procedures, even there is a topic coming tomorrow on day 4, prospective financial information, forensic audit. Procedures can come anywhere in P7, right? But whenever the examiner says write procedures, you should know how much. 1 mark per procedure. So what would you look at? You would look at your number of marks. And when you look at your number of marks, you know how much procedures I should be writing in exam paper. So 1 mark per procedure. It should not be ambiguous, but it should not even be a paragraph. Right, so that these are journal rules for writing a procedure in P7, irrespective of the topic or irrespective of the question which comes on procedure. Right, now let's see what procedures are. Is everyone clear so far on the first emphasis of procedure, that procedure is to recommend or to describe or to explain, goes in the same manner. Procedures is 1 mark per procedure, and so on and so forth. Yes, Muhammad Umar, procedure starts with verb perfectly. I'm just coming to that. Procedure start with verb. But just want to make the marking scheme clear. I hope everyone is clear with the introduction to writing procedures. Okay, now let's see what exactly is to be done. Procedures. Okay, that was exactly the question of a student saying that procedures should start with verb. That is Muhammad Umar, right? Muhammad Umar, procedures should start with verb, and that's exactly what is coming here. Saima Mazhar, yes, we will have a namaz break at 6:35 Pakistan Standard Time. So just wait for another 10 minutes, and 6:35, I'll put the session to a hold for 10 minutes. I will come back after that. Okay, procedure starts with verb. Yes. Procedure means that you're doing something, right? Procedure means you're doing something. Who is doing something? The auditor. So when you're writing a procedure, it should sound as if you're doing something. So if you're doing something, then that means a verb. And if you're doing something, what technically the auditor do? The auditor ideally either reviews, recalculate, discuss, analyze. See, are they all verbs? Review shows that you're doing something. Recalculate shows that you're doing something. Discuss shows that you're doing something. and analyze shows that you're doing something. So they're all verbs, right? So that they demonstrate that you're doing something that makes it a procedure. Now, in P7, these are like four very common verbs. This is not an F8 paper where you can think about observations and recalculations and putting a confirmation letter. Confirmation letter, yes, can come once in a blue moon in P7. You should know, okay, a confirmation letter goes to the third parties. But apart from that, if I would be very blunt, that in a P7 paper, what are typical verbs? The typical verbs in P7 is these four verbs which are in screen in front of you. So either you review something, or you recalculate something, you discuss something, or you analyze something. So I think in P7 context, you need to stick yourself down to these four rather than thinking of the else and then spoiling in your answer. Okay, what about the verbs such as obtain, receive, and confirm? Sharmila Siddiqui, yes, I'll guide you on that once I go a step ahead of that. The initial verbs are four, but there are so many synonyms. So many synonyms. If you type the word review on a Microsoft Word, and review have so many synonyms, you can use all of them in the exam paper. You type recalculate and see the synonyms. You write discuss and see the synonyms. You write analyze and see the synonyms. So there are so many synonyms, right, which can be replaced with review, recalculate, discuss, analyze. But it sounds good in P7 to use review, recalculate, discuss, analyze, right? So to confirm is mostly a reason. When I have to write a reason, I'll say to confirm this, to confirm that. So I'll come to that. Sharmila Siddiqui. Ehsan Khan, can I use agree and verify as a verb? Yes, agree and verify can be used as verb. No doubt about that. Confirm can be used as a verb, but let's hold that, Ehsan Khan and Sharmila Siddiqui, for the practice session to start, where I'll write the procedure so you can judge, confirm, verify, agree. Can that all be used in? But is everyone clear with these four action verbs? Review, recalculate, discuss, analyze. And this sounds like if the auditor is doing something. Is everyone clear with that? Four yes and no answers quickly from the panel, from the attendees. Okay, so now let's go one quick step ahead before the prayer breaks. When I say review, something, basically what we review is documents. I can say review the board minutes. I can say review the cash books. I can say review the bank statement. I can say review the loan agreement. I can say review the lease agreement. I can say review a correspondence with the supplier. Review is like a document, right? Whether you review a document, you review an agreement, you review a policy, you review a bank statement, something like that. So review, the rule of thumb with the review is that you're reviewing documents, and you know documents are so important in the audit. Abdul Manan, discuss what, analyze what, discuss what. Yes, I'm coming to that, Abdul Manan. Discuss what, obviously, that would be the case study. What are you discussing? Obviously, you have to discuss with management something which is given in the case study. Analyze what, obviously, you analyze the numbers. So just have patience on that, Abdul Manan. I'm coming to that. Discuss what, analyze what, discuss what, because obviously that is what I'm doing currently. What is the difference between a procedure and evidence? Asim Iqbal, you need to hold your patience. We are currently into procedures. After procedures, we'll go down to evidence. First procedures, then evidence. Then only you can understand the difference. If I do them together, you will not understand the difference, Asim Iqbal. Okay, so review the documents, right? Review the documents. So the rule of thumb with review is that you look at the documents. Okay, now just before getting to what you recalculate, what you discuss, what you analyze, so that the query of Abdul Manan can be answered. I hope, Abdul Manan, you're getting my point. I am coming down to that, and so on and so forth. Okay. We are just taking now a namaz break. The prayer breaks. It's 6:30, the local time, the Pakistan Standard Time, and we'll resume back at 6:40 p.m. Pakistan Standard Time. So we have a prayer break, right? And I'll be back in 10 minutes. Welcome back after the prayer breaks. Okay, let's resume where we were. Audit procedures. Now, my point of view with procedures were that procedures needs to start with something which demonstrate that you're doing something. Review is the document. Now, just before getting ahead, Abdul Manan was saying discuss what, analyze what. So I just told you to hold on that, because obviously that's coming later into the topic. Obviously, I need to tell you what you are discussing and what you are analyzing. And I hope you should be knowing, Abdul Manan, if you are going for repeating P7, that what you analyze and what you discuss. ACCA Zahid was asking additional information, procedures and evidence, are they the same thing? Yes, that's part of my webinar today. I will be splitting them one by one. So first the procedures, then the evidence, and then the additional information, so that you have a very clear picture of what the three looks like in P7. Asim Iqbal, what is the difference between evidence and procedure? Obviously, that's my agenda. First procedures, then evidence, so that you know the segregation. If I do both of them together, you will be confused. I hope I've answered you, Abdul Manan, ACCA Zahid, and Asim Iqbal. Now, moving ahead. Okay, recalculate. Obviously, you recalculate numbers, like you can recalculate the deferred tax, you can recalculate depreciation, you can recalculate the finance cost. So auditor can do the recalculation, right? He can do the recalculation of the deferred tax. The auditor can do the recalculation of the finance cost. The auditor can do the recalculation of the depreciation. Discuss, inquire. You discuss with management, right? There might be so many things in the case you might need to discuss with management. You might need to discuss with management their estimations. You might need to discuss management what are basis of estimations. You might even discuss with management anything which they are doing wrong in the case. So to ask the justification, why are they doing so? So anything which you think can be discussed with management, anything you think in the case is blur, and I should ask the management, discuss the management, or discuss with the audit committee to get a better justification. There might be a point of view of the management in the case, and you think the point of view is not very clear. So I would discuss with the management their point of view, so that I can have a basis or a justification of their point of view. Analyze. Obviously, you analyze trends, analyze typical analytical procedures, right? So you analyze the trends, you analyze the ratios, you analyze the comparison current year with the last year. Obviously, analyze to help you with identifying is whether something is increasing or whether something is decreasing. So analyzing is not more about it is the analytical procedure. So analytical procedure means to identify the trends, to identify the ratios, to identify the comparisons. So you should know what each procedure do basically. If you know what each procedure do, you can realistically link that down with exam paper. Sir, will you cover due diligence and PFI in this webinar? Sheikh Tariq, yes, PFI is tomorrow. Due diligence is not important for March 18. It just came down in September 17 exams, so have no focus. Sharmila Siddiqui, obtain a written representation can be said instead of discuss. Yes, obtain written representation is good enough to start on with, rather than written representation cannot be discussed, right? Written representation is something you obtain from the management. Perfectly with that. So would you give us your tips for March 18 exams at the end of the webinar? Yes, on Saturday. Saturday is a very exclusive day for guiding you how to attempt a 100 marks paper, how to balance time, what should be done first and after. And Saturday is a very important day because I'll be sharing with you my tips for March 18 exams, which I think most of you would have interest in. So stay tuned for that. Sadia Juma and Bilal Qureshi, wait for Saturday. Keep building the suspense so that at the end of the webinar, you get the suspense unrevealed. I hope you can have patience till Saturday, Bilal Qureshi and Sadia Juma. Okay, moving ahead. Discuss and inquire is same. They are synonyms. Muhammad Azim should have some common sense. If you type discuss on Microsoft Word and look at the synonym, it will say inquire. You type inquire and look at the synonyms, it says discuss. Discuss and inquire, I've put them in slash. Slash means this or that. P7 don't have test of controls. P7, whenever the examiner in P7 asks you procedures, by default they mean substantive procedures. No need to get into test of controls and test of retail. That's something you do in the F8 paper. No sense of that in P7. P7 procedures means substantive procedures. Whether they are analytical procedures or they are review, recalculate, discuss, would not make any difference. Please, what are timings of the Saturday class? You need to get that through done by the ACCA panel. What are timings for Saturday class? Okay, I'm moving ahead of procedures now. I hope everyone is clear with the 4 verbs. And I hope everyone knows what exactly is to be done with the 4 verbs. Review, recalculate, discuss, and analyze. For procedures, will we have to do analytical procedures like ratios? No, Sadia Juma. You will simply say analyze the receivable days, or you will simply say analyze the inventory days if that is in the case study. But you will not start writing, you will not start defining the ratios. That's not the need of a procedure question. That's only the need of a risk question. Review, recalculate, discuss, analyze. They are substantive procedures, right, Salman Khan? I hope you've given your F8 paper. So I hope in context of P7 to ask what is a substantive procedure sounds a bit illogical. Okay, now how would you make procedures and even evidence? I'm not touching evidence currently for the next 10-15 minutes. I just want to be very specific on procedures because then I'll take a transition to evidence so that you know exactly what's the difference. When you are making a procedure, again, the emphasis on day 1, day 2, and today is to look at the case. Procedures are within the case. You cannot go in the exam hall with a rote learning of procedures. I've seen so many students rote learning procedures, learning procedures from books. Yes, they might help you somewhere or the other, but not to a significant extent. Because what I believe is you read the case and you can find procedures from the case. I'll prove that. So case study, right? Within the case study, you need to find the procedures. How? Within the case, you will find some facts. For example, within the case, you will find some facts. Facts like, suppose the management, in a case study, it is written, the company has recently acquired another company. That's written in the case study, right? And that's a fact. The fact means the company has recently acquired another company. That's a case basically. So if the company has recently acquired another company, will you be interested in making procedures on the company has acquired? So if the company has acquired, they must have had an agreement, the acquisition agreement. You can review the acquisition agreement. The company must have paid a price of the acquiring another company. You can review the bank statements for the price the company has paid. The bank statement for the price the company has paid for it. So if the company has acquired another company, if I'm an auditor, I will review first of all the agreement of acquisition to ensure that what basically was the purchase consideration, how much I had to pay in terms of acquisition. And then obviously I need to look at the bank statement, and the company has acquired another company. So I should know the bank statement, how much has been paid. Figures. In a case, there might be figures. The company has recently acquired another company for $75 million. The 75 million is a figure. And if I need to verify the company has paid 75 million, the paid is the bank statement. So if I review the bank statement, I will know that the company has paid 75 million to acquire another company. So 75 million, you acquired a company, that is written in the agreement. But has the company paid for it? Yes, the bank statement. Risk of material misstatement. Now I just told you that procedures do come in question 1, and on the day 1 we were discussing that in a question 1 there is an audit risk, there is a risk of material misstatement. So suppose you're doing a question 1 and you found a risk that the company has not impaired the goodwill. Now, obviously, if the company has not impaired the goodwill, that is a risk. That means goodwill is overstated, or goodwill could be overstated, because the company has not reviewed. The company has not reviewed the goodwill for impairment. So in terms of that, you need to ensure that if the company has not reviewed the goodwill for impairment, I should make a procedure on that. Should I ask management why have they not reviewed goodwill for impairment? Is that yes and no? Whether if the management has not carried out an impairment review of goodwill, should I ask management what is the reason for that? What is the justification of that? Is that appropriate to ask management the justification, the reason? So if there is a risk in the question, the management has done something wrong, or the management is doing something wrong, I should ask the management why is that so, or why are they doing so? So when you look at a case, you need to see what are facts in the case, because obviously the auditor will try attacking facts with procedures. Figures are so important thing, right? The auditor do obtain evidence on procedures, do make procedures on evidence, procedures on figures. So what should we be doing? Once I start the case shortly, case, and within the case we are looking for facts, we're looking for figures, and we're looking for risk, and accordingly we need to make a list of procedures. And procedure starts with review, discuss, analyze, and recalculate. Is everyone clear till this point in time? Facts, figures, and risk. So from a case we need to find out the facts, from a case we need to find out the figures, from the case we need to find out the risk of material misstatement. And if you're able to find them out, you are able to deliver very good procedures to assessor. I hope everyone is understanding what I'm trying to deposit. Figure not clear, Qasim Abdul Rashid. Figure is the value. There must be a value in the case. If the company has acquired something, there must be a value. If the goodwill has not been impaired, then the goodwill has a value. Obviously, you are working on accounting matters. So accounting matters should have numbers. How can an accounting matter be without numbers? So there must be some value which relates with income statement. There might be some value which relates with balance sheet. Okay, Tanima, could you explain with different examples? What should I be explaining with different examples? Can you just clarify your question, Tanima? Can you please explain with different examples for facts? Yes, I'm just coming down to the practice session, Tanima, and I'll be clearing that. If facts in the case are so many. Facts is like the summary of the case, right? Fact is like the central idea of the case. The case will be on one central idea. The central idea is basically the fact. Obviously, the risk of material misstatement, Abdul Manan, means the risk in the case study. In the question one, there might be so many risks. The company has not impaired the goodwill is a risk. So how would you ask management that why they have not impaired the goodwill? Or in the question it is written that the borrowing cost has not been capitalized. Now you will ask management that as per the IS 23, the borrowing cost should be capitalized. Because if the borrowing cost has not been capitalized, that means the non-current assets are understated. Safiola Riaz, wait for that. I'm just coming to that. I'm just answering once I start with the practice session. So when you make procedures from facts, figures, and risk, right? Okay, now just take an example, then I take you to an exam paper. If in journal, I am writing a procedure in P7, just to make you clear that a procedure carry 1 mark, and a procedure is like a sentence, and a procedure should start with verb. Let me make something clear, then I take you to a case study. Now, I have just given you that a procedure carry 1 mark, right? And a procedure has to start with verb. And how many verbs? 4 verbs, right? So when you look at a procedure, see how I had made procedures here? It says review the board minutes. Why? Confirming the approval of the cold comfort brand. Your procedure should have a reason, because if you are doing something, you are doing it for a certain objective. Objective is your reason. So if I say review the board minutes and I put a full stop, is that not a blank statement? Review the board minutes, full stop. Should not I ask myself that why am I reviewing the board minutes? So review the board minutes, confirming I need to write the reason after. Discuss with management the basis used to determine the useful life of the cold comfort brand. So if I'm discussing something with management, I should know what am I discussing. So what am I discussing? I'm discussing the basis used to determine the useful life. Then I recalculate the amortization. Full stop, no. I recalculate the amortization. Why? To ensure it is accurate, to confirm it's accurate. Has the management made any mistake in the calculation of amortization? No, because I recalculated the amortization to confirm it's accurately. Analyze the increase in work in progress. See, that is an analytical procedure. Analyze the increase in work in progress. And if I analyze the increase in work in progress, now obviously the reason of increase has to come from the management. So when I say analyze the increase in work in progress, I should discuss reason with management for such increase, to confirm its reasonableness. I hope you should remember this rule of thumb in P7. Then whenever you analyze something, you will find something increasing or decreasing, right? So the justification of that increase and decrease is discuss reasons with management. Discuss reasons with management. See all my 4 procedures. Were they all starting with verbs? Yes or no? Were they all starting with verbs? The attendees, I need your participation, your enthusiasm. Are all the 4 procedures starting with verbs? And does all the 4 procedures have the reason why are you doing it? If I say review, then why am I reviewing? If I say discuss, then why am I discussing? If I say recalculate, then why am I recalculating? If I say analyze, then why am I analyzing? So it's 1 mark, but it's not procedure, it's also the reason. If you only write a procedure, not a reason, you will take 0.5 marks. So if you write a procedure and you write a reason, that will take 1 mark. That will take 1 mark, right? And remember, if you only write procedure, that will take 0.5 marks. So see the tone of writing procedure. That is exactly what I want to show you through this slide. That is the way of presenting them. Can you see those bullets and sentences? Is there any paragraphing? Is there any paragraphing for procedures? Is there any paragraphing for procedures? Not at all. So you need to ensure they're written in sentences. They are written in like bullets, but they should not be ambiguous. They should not be ambiguous. They should be clear. They should be clear. Clear. That means it should have a reason. It should have a reason. Cutting and grammar mistakes account? No. Bilal Ahmed, ACCA is a global qualification. The grammar and spelling mistakes do not count into your passing and failing. But obviously, being a professional into a professional qualification, you should try to refrain from that as much as possible. But yes, obviously, if you do any grammar and spelling mistakes, would not be leading to any marks issues or deductions. Yes, we need to write 6 sentences. Sharmila Siddiqui, if 6 marks question means 6 sentences, right? Okay, now let's do an exercise. We are going down with procedures with verbs, procedures with reasons, procedures with facts, procedures with risk, and procedures with the figures. Let's do an exercise. Okay, now just before starting with evidence, let's hold evidence for 10 minutes and let's go to practice session. Okay, if I just go to the day one of the risk where I had a question paper given to you, if you even don't have it currently, don't be worried about it. You can see it on the screen, though that was shared with you on the day one. Irrespective of that, I just told you that procedure comes in question one. Let's go down and see. See this one. December 14. Okay, this December 14 question, right? And you go down. See this December 14 question, my point of view, that question one do contains procedures, not every time, most of the time. See this, C part, recommend audit procedures, principal audit procedures to be performed in respect of the cold comfort brand. How many marks? 5. So how many procedures should I write? 5 procedures, 5 sentences, bullets. So knowing I need to write 5 procedures on a cold comfort brand, I need to see where is the cold comfort brand in the case study. So let's find where is the cold comfort brand in the case study. I'll go down, down, and down, and I'll find this paragraph. This paragraph is about the cold comfort brand. How many procedures? 5, right? And what I said to you just now, facts, figures, risk. Another success in 2014 was the acquisition of the cold comfort brand from the rival company. So they had acquired a brand from a rival company. Is that the central idea of the case? Is that exactly what the case depends upon, that they acquired a brand from the rival company? So acquired a brand, should I review the purchase agreement to ensure that they acquired a brand? Review the purchase agreement to ensure they acquired a brand, and at what cost they acquired it. So see, I'm in the case acquisition of the cold comfort brand from the rival company, so I should review the purchase agreement, and the purchase agreement will tell me that they have acquired a brand from the rival company and at what price, at what cost. What is the brand about? The brand is about products to alleviate the symptoms of cough and cold are sold under this brand. Obviously, that must be written in the agreement as well, that it is a product to alleviate the symptoms of cough and cold. The brand cost 5 million. The brand cost 5 million must be in the purchase agreement, right? The purchase agreement must had stated that you acquired it at 5 million, but you must have paid for 5 million. So should I review the bank statement for $5 million? $5 million is the figure. I think someone asked me, figure is what? So can you see the $5 million figure here? So can I review the bank statement for $5 million? Will that confirm I have paid for the brand? So I acquired a brand, so I should have an agreement. The brand cost 5 million, the company should have paid for the brand cost and is being amortized over an estimated useful life of 5 years. Is being amortized. Will I ask management the basis of estimates here? Because it says estimated. So should I discuss with management the basis of estimate? Discuss the basis of estimate. Should I discuss with management the basis of estimate? And should I ask management how have they determined the life to be 15 years? How they estimated the life to be 15 years? Because what's the risk? What's the risk? If the 15 years life is wrong, then the amortization could be understated or overstated. Risk. So what's the risk? Amortization, useful life. If the useful life is wrong, will that under and overstate the amortization? Right? So should we recalculate the amortization once we know the bases are right? Should we recalculate the amortization once we know the bases are right after discussing with management? So recalculate the amortization, right? So see, were we in the case study? Were we in the case? We discussed the useful life. The cost was reviewed to the bank statement. The brand you acquired was reviewed to the purchase agreement. and you recalculate the amortization. And what was the risk? The risk was the amortization. So you recalculated the amortization for addressing the risk. Now, obviously, when the company acquired a brand from the rival company, there must have been an approval from the board minutes. This is something very important. If the company takes a decision to sell something, to buy something, all such decisions should have board minutes. Everyone agrees with that? If the company buys something, if the company sells something, those need board minutes. So should I say review the board minutes to confirm the approval of the acquisition? Review the board minutes for the approval of the acquisition? No, we don't have to mention the risk, Sharmila Siddiqui. You need to convert the risk into procedure. Whether you need to think in your back of mind that what's the risk, and if you can think at the back of your mind what's the risk, then think about a procedure to address the risk. You don't need to write risk, right? Though this question contains risk, and that is a separate requirement for separate marks. You must have written risk in that requirement, but when you're writing procedures, you're just making a procedure on risk. Review bank statement to verify the $5 million spent on purchase of the brand. Is it right? Yes, Muhammad Umar, that's perfectly right. Recalculate the goodwill relating to the rival company to ensure correct goodwill has been recorded in the account. Amaduddin Mughal, we are discussing the brand. The brand has been acquired, so it's a purchase brand which needs to go down into the balance sheet as an intangible asset. So the acquired brand, we are testing the acquired brand. Is everyone clear with what I just did? Is everyone getting my mindset that you need to look at the case and how many marks, and then in the case what you should look at? The case must give you some facts. What was the fact? We acquired a brand. What was the figure? $5 million. What was the risk? Being amortized over an estimated useful life. So what was the risk? Estimated. So did we find facts, risk, and figures in the case helping us to make procedures? Please don't get confused with facts, figures, risk. It's more about case. Involve in case. The more you involve in case, the better the answer would be. So try finding procedures from the case, irrespective of getting into the confusion of facts, figures, risk, or rather than asking me what is the fact, no, what is the figure, no, what is the risk. I think the bottom line is case. Read the case. Everything is in the case, and try finding out in from a case what is to be done. No, Asim Iqbal, going down to the stretch of ice 28 is ice 38, right? Not ice 28, Asim Iqbal. Amaduddin, you acquired a brand. The brand is an intangible asset. It brings the future economic benefit, and the cost can be reliably measured, so goes down into the intangible asset. You didn't acquire a company. Okay, let's go back to one last thing and taking one more session exercise. Okay, let me do one final exercise. Please try to emphasize, and I will be needing your feedback on this. My point of view was that when you are making a procedure is equal to verb. Is that true? Procedure is equal to verb, that is review, that is recalculate, that is discuss, that is analyze. Then what? Procedure should have a reason. I should have a reason. Why am I reviewing? Why am I recalculating? Why am I discussing? Why am I analyzing? So it should have a verb and it should have a reason. And this together will give me how much marks? 1 mark, right? Perfect. Second, procedure should have a verb and a reason. Procedure should come from case. It has to be within case, not outside case. And examiner will give you information in the case. You need to use the information. You need to use the information to identify the procedures. You need to identify procedures from the case. So in the case, you can find numbers, facts. There would be something in the case for you to work out writing procedures. I hope this picture is clear to everyone. Procedure is a verb and a reason. Procedure is a case. Involve yourself in a case and identify procedure. Write them in sentences. Write them in sentences. So I hope I'm taking the second shift. We still need to do evidence. A lot of clarification would come from there as well, and a lot of things would be clarified. We have ample of time left so far, so I hope by the end of day we would have a crystal clear concepts on procedures and evidence. And there are a lot of things which I still need to address. So don't think that is it on procedure. We're still building upon. I'm looking at your queries. Some of those queries will be coming ahead, so I'm just ignoring them. So don't just believe that your query has not been addressed. The queries are being considered, and most of them is in my lecture ahead. So I'm just holding them out. Okay, can we proceed to evidence now? Is everyone clear on procedures? So once I start with evidence, I hope you will not get confused. Is there a clarification on procedures? Is there a clarification on procedures? Yes, inspect verb can be used for documents, Bilal Qureshi, but P7 paper, you are a manager. Review is a better replacement of inspect. I'll encourage use review rather inspect, though there is nothing wrong with inspect, Bilal Qureshi. You can go down with it. Okay, thank you so much for your yes comments, clear comments. Beautifully explained comment from Elam Shazadi. Thank you so much for that. Can we investigate? Yes, you can investigate, but investigate is more like something like a fraud or forensic. If you get a question on forensic, then investigate sounds a better verb. Amaduddin Mughal. Okay, need more practice? Yes, I will be doing more practice because I just need to go from procedure to evidence, and then I'll do a broad scale exercise. And obviously you need to do practice on your part as well. I just sum up the procedures for Asad Ali that is right in front of you, the screen being shared right in front of you. I just sum up them, so would not be coming back to that. Okay, let's start with evidence. Let's see how good you are on evidence. Exam requirement on evidence. Now, there are two types of questions which comes on evidence. Let me make you clear on that first. Okay, we are starting with evidence, and I hope all of you, those of you who are repeating P7, know that evidence is such an important part of a 100 marks paper. Evidence comes in a separate question, and there are two types of questions which comes on evidence, and I'm preparing you for both. There is a type 1 question which comes on evidence. There is a type 2 question which comes on evidence. The type 1 question is very common, and that is something which comes very often. And the type 2 comes after substantial gaps, but is part of P7. The type 1 question, must have seen that many times. The type 1 question, what is the examiner asking you? Requirement. It says, comment on matters. Comment on matters you should focus on. You should focus on, comma, and explain the evidence. And explain the evidence in the working paper file. And explain the evidence in working paper Explain the evidence in the working paper file. This has been a very regular feature of P7 exams. This has been a regular feature of P7 attempts in the past. So many attempts. Comment on the matters you should focus on and explain the evidence in the working paper file. There is a second question requirement which asks the vice versa. It asks you, comment on the sufficiency. Comment on the sufficiency and appropriateness of the evidence obtained. Comment on the sufficiency and appropriateness of evidence obtained. See the two types of questions? So type 1 is asking us what? The type 1 is asking us comment on the methods, and explain the evidence, So that means the question is asking us two things, right? First, the question is asking us to comment on the matter, number 1, and then to explain the evidence, number 2. So that means in that question I have to do two things, right? Methods and evidence. But the type 2 is telling me comment on what? Comment on the sufficiency and appropriateness of the evidence obtained. So in a question where the examiner asks you comment on the sufficiency and appropriateness of the evidence will be in the case, and you need to comment, you need to justify whether you believe the evidence gathered is sufficient or not, whether you believe the evidence gathered is appropriate or not. So that means you should know as a student, sufficiency depends upon what makes evidence sufficient. You do that in F8 paper. What makes evidence appropriate? So if you know sufficiency and appropriateness factors and what it depends upon, you will be reading a case and you can easily identify, no, the evidence is not sufficient, no, the evidence is not appropriate. So to identify the evidence obtained in the case, whether the evidence obtained is sufficient or not, you need to know what is sufficiency and what is appropriateness. I'll be doing a proper question on sufficiency and appropriateness. I think that was a question from one of the students. I'll be coming to a proper question on type 2 and a proper question on type 1. So I'll prepare you for both very appropriately within a balance of time we have. So comment on the sufficiency and appropriateness. I hope everyone knows what sufficiency and appropriateness of evidence means. I'm already looking at my screen for very good answers coming on sufficiency and appropriateness. Very good answers. This is a jargon which comes from F8, right? Sufficiency and appropriateness of evidence. You should have good idea, and I'll refine it as I go down with type 2. But can you pick the difference between type 1? The type 1 asks us the matters, and the type 1 asks us the evidence in the file. See that thing? Evidence in the file. What is in the file? The file contains what? Can I get quick answers? The file contains what? Yes, Amaruddin Mughal, working papers. Anyone else? What does file contains? Audit paper. Aksar Zaid, perfect. So what else? The file contains documents, perfect. So what the file contains? Working papers, current file, permanent files. So what's the bottom line? The file contains papers. So everything in the file will be black and white. Everything in the file will be documentary. So the examiner wants us to write evidence in the file. So what is the form of evidence in the file? The form of evidence in the file is tangible. Is that true? The form of evidence in the file is tangible. The form of evidence in the file is black and white, documentary, documents, tangible, hard, yes. So is that true? Is that true that the evidence in the file is something in black and white, something in the tangible form, something in a form of a document? Okay, that's good. That's good that most of you responding agree. I want to see more responses coming in. There is a lot of attendee panels which is not communicating very effectively. I hope you agree with my statement that the evidence in the file is something tangible. Okay, last thing, matters. When the examiner asks you comment on the matters and the question is on evidence, be very careful. When the examiner asks you comment on the matters and the question is on evidence, I'm repeating it again. When the examiner asks you comment on the matters and the question is on evidence, then what exactly matter means? The matter means exactly what you did on day one. The matter means three. Note it down with you. The matter means three. The first matter means materiality. The first matter means materiality. The first matter means materiality. The second matter means treatment. Treatment. And the third matter means risk. I hope you remember the MTR. Those of you who were on day one, I hope the students who were on day one, can you remember the MTR? How important MTR was in an audit risk question and a risk of material misstatement? So you need to write the MTR again. And that's exactly what I tell my students, that you're attempting the MTR twice in one paper. You are attempting the MTR in a question one, risk. You're attempting the MTR in a question on evidence. The M stands for materiality, Azimullah. M stands for materiality, matters. M is materiality. T is the treatment. R is the risk. So how many matters? Three matters. Materiality, treatment, risk. Materiality, treatment, risk. So I need to know the materiality, treatment, risk. Let's do an exercise. I'm moving from this slide, taking the next one. Okay, is this the picture we are getting now? Evidence have two types of questions, right? One, two. The question on evidence can ask you to write matters, right? The question on evidence can ask you to write evidence in working paper file, true? And the question on evidence can ask you to comment on the sufficiency and appropriateness of evidence. So are those three things we should be very careful about in attempting a question on evidence? So I hope those three columns are very clear in front of you now. So if I'm preparing myself for P7 evidence, I should know what matters are in a question on evidence. I should know what evidence is in the working paper file. And I should also know that what sufficiency and appropriateness of evidence means. Okay, let's do one by one analysis now. When the examiner asks me to write matters, my matters would be M, my matters would be T, and my matters would be R. M is the materiality, everyone agrees. T is the treatment, R is the risk. But how many marks will I gain? In a question on risk, when I write the MTR, how much marks I gain? Let's see who is active, who is mentally present. Day one, when you work on MTR in a question number one, how much marks you take? 2. Risk. In a question one, you take 2 marks. But when you are attempting the meta MTR in an evidence question, the examiner says 1 mark for M, 1 mark for T, 1 mark for R. So how many marks are you taking? 3. Please let me make me clear. The MTR in the first question is 2 marks. The MTR in a question on evidence is 3. 1 for M, 1 for T, 1 for R. Is everyone clear with that? So if the examiner asks you to write matters in an evidence question, how many matters will you be thinking? If an examiner asks you to write matters, 3, perfect, 3, good. Okay, second, when the examiner asks you to write evidence in the working paper file, the evidence has to be what? The evidence has to be tangible, The evidence has to be black and white. The something in writing. The evidence has to be in a form of a document, because in the working paper file you will find documents, right? In the working paper file you will find something tangible, something black and white. Is that good to write evidence? The evidence in the file is something like a paper, like a document, paper, document, tangible. Is that true? So is everyone clear with that word evidence in the working paper file? So the evidence in the file, if I normally tell my student, imagine a file in front of you. So what file have? Papers. The file has overload of papers. You have punched the papers in the file. You have put the papers in the file. So what's the evidence in the file? The evidence in the file is tangible, black and white, and it's in form of paper. Right? Is everyone clear with the column 2? Column 3, sufficiency of evidence, appropriateness of evidence. Now all of you know that sufficiency of evidence depends upon what? Sufficiency depends upon amount of evidence. So sufficiency relates with sample size. If I reduce my sample size, will it make my evidence insufficient? If I reduce my sample size, will it make my evidence insufficient? And if I increase my sample size, will it make my evidence sufficient? So can I say higher the sample size, higher the sufficiency, lower the sample size, lower the sufficiency? So sufficiency depends upon the amount of evidence I gather from the company or from within the company. Then comes appropriate. The evidence is appropriate. That means the evidence is relevant and the evidence is reliable. Evidence is reliable, evidence is relevant to make it appropriate. Now, for example, if I am asking, discuss with the supervisor, and if I say discuss with the audit committee, which is more relevant in terms of the authority. So if I'm discussing something with a supervisor at the factory, or if I'm discussing something with an audit committee, which is more relevant? Audit committee, right? If I discuss with the director or if I discuss with the manager, obviously the director discussion is more relevant because authority. So during the audit, if I verify the purchase in the sales ledger, is that relevant? I think obviously that's a big mistake. Purchase invoice in the sales ledger. Sounds irrelevant? Sounds like a blunder? Yes. So you need to pick up the relevance. You need to pick up the relevance from the case. If you think something is not relevant, then it's not appropriate. Reliable. Evidence is reliable when it comes from third parties. That is a rule of thumb, right? You do in F8. What makes evidence reliable? When it comes from third party, customers, suppliers, banks. So what makes evidence reliable? Evidence is reliable when it comes from banks, customers, suppliers. Yes, Asim Iqbal, independent sources. Muhammad Tahir, third party. When it is in the original form, Amaduddin, agree. So what makes evidence reliable? Yes, when it comes from third parties. What makes it relevant? When it has been discussed with the right person. Tell me, if a manager is working on going concern and if the junior is working on going concern, is the manager working on going concern more relevant in terms of gathering evidence? Yes. And if the junior works on going concern, is that relevant? If the junior, no. So can we pick such statements? Can we pick such statements on common sense? I think this is natural. This is common sense. Junior works, irrelevant. Manager works, relevant. I discuss with audit committee, relevant. I discuss with the clerk, irrelevant. And what makes it reliable? What makes it reliable? The third parties. Are these three columns clear to everyone? Matters, is everyone clear with matters? Is everyone clear with evidence in the working paper file? Is everyone clear with sufficiency and appropriateness of evidence? So is everyone clear with each and every column so that we can take the step next and then more appropriately the past paper, which is so very important, because I need to put good time on type 1 paper and type 2 paper so that everyone gets a good idea of attempting the one you get in your exam setting. Though the higher chances is the type 2 for the March 18 exams, but I still need to spell out my probable areas on Saturday. Okay, is everyone clear with that? Perfect. Let's move on. Okay, so we just discussed this. Now I'm just will skip them as quickly as possible. In a question on evidence, when you are asked to write comment on matters, so you know comment on matter means materiality, treatment, and risk. So you know materiality carry 1 marks, treatment carry 1 marks, risk carry 1 mark, right? So this slide is guiding you exactly to what I just told you. So comment on the matters, and you know what comment on the matters are. Now, remember the marking scheme. When you get a question where you need to write a matter, every matter is worth 1 mark, right? I just told you. And every evidence is worth 1 mark. It's pretty simple. 1 mark per matter, 1 mark per evidence, and 1 mark per sufficiency. If you're commenting on the sufficiency and appropriateness, every comment takes 1 mark. So I think in the whole topic, the marking scheme is 1. Comment on the matter, how much mark will I take per comment? Per comment, how many marks will I take? 1. And if I write an evidence, for every evidence, how much marks will I take? For every evidence, I will take 1 mark. Okay, and for every comment on the sufficiency and appropriateness, for every comment on the sufficiency and appropriateness, how much marks will I take? 1. So can I say 1 is the perfect marking scheme here for anything you do in evidence? Whatever you do in evidence, whether you comment on the matter or you comment on the sufficiency or you write the evidence, you are taking 1 mark. I think that's the easiest marking scheme you can take to the exam hall and do an answer, make an answer. Is that clear? It looks so easy now. Amaduddin Mughal. P7 is all about tricks, tips, techniques. That's exactly what I believe. P7 is such a good paper because it's all techniques oriented. P7 is all tips oriented. P7 is all tricks oriented. You should know the techniques. You should know the tricks. You should know the techniques, and you can come out of it very well. A lot of students spend so much time on books. They do practice so much, but just still not get anything because you're not practicing with what exactly is the question asking you. See what I did with you, type 1 and type 2, from where I got that, from the past papers. How would I know that the comment on the matter means what? From where did I know that comment on the sufficiency means what? From where did I know that evidence is tangible? So you need to be good on your techniques, because ultimately what makes you pass in P7 is your techniques. You should know the boundaries, you should know the marks, you should know what is to be done, and obviously you will pass P7. It's only your wrong approaches. It's only about you practice, but you don't concentrate what is the question asking you. You will practice loads of questions. I'll ask a student, how much questions have you practiced? 20, 30. But what's the understanding? Nothing. So try making your understanding very clear, right? Try making your understanding very clear. I hope you're getting some sense developed on holding P7, though this is just the day 3. We still have a day 4 and day 5 coming tomorrow. I hope you're getting some confidence gaining since these 2.5 days, and I hope these concept gainings would be helpful in your success on the 5th of March. Exactly, you have your exam paper. So is everyone gaining confidence? Is everyone gaining confidence? Is everyone getting to know something, particularly the repeaters? Are you getting to know your weaknesses? Are you getting to know where had you been lacking in the past sessions? And where had you been going down, or what had you been doing wrong? Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. I just need to keep you enthusiastic and motivated. I hope in the last 2.5 days, I have not made you demotivated or had made a fear factor for P7. I hope I had made P7 look more optimistic, and I hope I had made P7 look much brighter than what you should had in mind before the webinar starts on the day one, right? So obviously, this is a great effort from ACCA Pakistan organizing such sessions for bringing improved results and engaging with students globally. Okay, moving ahead now. We are all set and prepared to tackle questions on procedures, evidence type 1, evidence type 2, and before just attacking that, one final thing. Just like a procedure, if procedure is a fact, a figure, a risk, so is the evidence. If you are attempting a question on evidence, you will look at the case again, because P7 is all about case. Again, you will look at the case. Again, you will see what are facts in the case, what are figures in the case, what are risks in the case, and you will identify what tangible thing should I write, what tangible evidence should I write. So the rule of thumb for making a procedure and making evidence is the same. Procedures start with a verb. Procedures start with a verb. The evidence starts with something tangible, something tangible. So procedure and evidence, do they come from fact, figure, and risk? Is that a common phenomena? Yes. So, but what's the difference between a procedure? The procedure starts with action verb. The procedure starts with review, discuss, analyze. And Azimullah, but tangible means paper, tangible means documentary, tangible means something on a piece of paper. File, what is in file, Azimullah? The file contains paper. Paper is tangible, right? The file contains papers. Papers can be policies. Papers can be agreements. Paper can be bank statement. Paper can be cash book. They're all papers. Something we can touch, tangible, paper, exactly. Sumaya Hassan. Okay, so making an evidence, making a procedure, fact, figure, risk plays a crucial part. MTR plays a very crucial part. These are all mnemonics which you can carry forward to your exam hall, provided you are crystal clear on these mnemonics and you can implement them into the exam hall. Okay, now concentrate on something very important I am doing with you currently. Before I start with paper, I'll keep exactly 1 good hour for papers, half an hour each on type 1 and half an hour each on type 2, and I hope that will make you crystal clear. And tomorrow, if we are left with something, I'll put another 15-20 minutes emphasis at the start of the day for tomorrow before I take in the agenda. Okay, now listen to me something very carefully. If I am writing a procedure, and if I am writing an evidence in working paper, see the difference. If I write a procedure, I'll say, okay, I'm taking an example of the cold comfort brand we just did. I hope you remember that cold comfort brand was acquired and the cost was 5 million. I hope you remember that case, right? So you remember the cold comfort brand case, everyone? Let's utilize that, converting procedures to evidence. If I say review the board minutes, I think I'm not writing the full procedure. Review the board minutes and you continue. Now, if I need to convert this to evidence, suppose I'm doing a question on evidence, Cold Comfort brand, the one we did. Suppose the requirement of the Cold Comfort brand is to write evidence, not procedures. So can I think of an evidence for procedure against this procedure? What will be in my file? What evidence will I have in file that I review the board minutes? What evidence will I have in file that I reviewed the board minutes? Perfectly, I will have evidence which is board minutes. Now obviously board minute is a management document, so I cannot put that as an original in my file, so I will make a photocopy of that. So what the examiner writes, the examiner says copy of the board minutes. Copy of board minutes to confirm whatever is the reason, whatever have you confirmed from the board minutes to confirm. Evidence has to be with reason, procedure has to be with reason, so there are a lot of similarities. But again, procedure starts with review, verb, and evidence starts with like copy of something. Is that clear? Copy of board minutes, because board minutes belongs to management. So if something belongs to management, can I put the original in my file? If something belongs to the management, can I put that original in the file? No. Will the management give me permission for that? No. So should I make a copy of that? Yes. Scan, Asim Iqbal, I've never seen examiner using the word scan, so please refrain from that. Use the word copy. Copy sounds better. Copy of the board minutes. Okay, let's do the second exercise then. Second, recalculate the amortization. Recalculate the amortization. That was in the Cold Comfort brand, right? Whatever was the reason. Now, if the auditor has recalculated the amortization, what evidence will he have in the file that he recalculated that? If the manager is looking at my file, how will the manager know that I have recalculated the amortization? Okay, I will have some working of the calculation. Yes, I will have my working papers. I will have my working papers, which will show the calculation I did. Yes, exactly. Not the copy of recalculation, Farwa, because copy belongs to management. If I recalculated something, I obviously must have used my writing pad, or on a writing pad, I must have recalculated the amortization, and so on and so forth. So if I recalculate the amortization, what is in my file? The examiner says in my file, I would have results of recalculation. But whatever recalculation I have done, I will have the results of recalculation in the file. Results of recalculation pertaining to amortization. Pertaining to amortization. So if I recalculate something, so in my file, how will my manager know that I recalculated something? I will have my results of recalculation in my file on a piece of paper, and the results of recalculation will be in my file, which will give assurance to my manager that I recalculated the amortization. Discuss. Working, Sumaya Hassan, can we write working of amortization? Yes, that's even fine. You can be flexible. I agree with that statement, Sumaya Hassan. Agree. Can we just write recalculation of amortization? No, recalculation is a verb. So we need to write something before that. Results of recalculation, working of recalculation, to make it tangible, tangible. Copy of recalculation, no, because it's my document. How can I say copy of recalculation? This is not management, this is me. So if something belongs to me, how can I say copy? So yes, I think you need to stick to recalculation results rather than so many examples are coming in front of my screen now. I think better to stick with results of recalculation as a rule of thumb in exam paper. Okay, third example. Discuss with management. So if I discuss with management, that becomes a procedure, right? Because it's starting with verb. Now, if I discuss something with management, how would my manager know that I discussed something with management? But what evidence will I have in my file that I discussed something with management? Discussion notes, agree, Asim Iqbal, good, discussion notes. But I'll have some of my discussion notes in my file, which says I have discussed something with management. Written acknowledgement, yes, but in the context of exams, though you're giving me good answers, all the attendees, but we need to stick to some jargons for exam paper. Discuss with management. Either I will have the same thing, results of discussion, because I've seen examiner doing that many times. Results of discussion, I agree that you can have notes of discussions, or you can have minutes of discussions, whatever you have discussed with management, minutes of discussions. So if you have discussed something with management, I can have the minutes of discussion with management, I can have notes of discussion with management, I can have results of discussion with management, because that is something I did, right? Voice recordings, no. Voice recordings, scan copies, never been used in P7, right? Please don't use that. In the digital era we are living in, that's so good. But the exam paper is on exam paper. Please don't use that. Please don't use that. We are using the results because results is what I must have found. If I recalculated the amortization, what I must have found a results from recalculation. That is the amortization right? Is the amortization wrong? I must have documented it somewhere. So results means whatever working I have done on a piece of paper. Muhammad Shahrukh Khan Ghazali. Why are we using the word results? Result means something you do on a piece of paper. Result means the something you write on a piece of paper. But if I'm calculating the amortization, then the results of amortization has to come on the working paper file. So if I recalculate something, I'll write results. If I discuss with something, I can even write results, notes. Okay, last thing. If I analyze, these are the 4 verbs, right? Analyze the increase in work in progress. Analyze the increase in work in progress. See, have I used the 4 verbs? Can you see those 4 verbs? Review, recalculate, discuss, analyze. If I review what comes in my file, copy. If I recalculate what comes in my file, results. If I discuss what comes in my file, results, notes, minutes. Is that not rule-based? Is that not something to remember easily for exam paper? If I review something, what is the evidence? Copy. If I recalculate, what's the evidence? Results. If I discuss what's the evidence? Notes, minutes, results. Okay, extracts of trend analysis, Mohammed Hussain. Yes, analyze the increase in work in progress. So if I'm analyzing the increase in work in progress, what evidence will I have? I'll have evidence again, my results of analytical procedures. Results of analytical procedures. So if I analyze increase in work in progress, I would have my results of analytical procedures. I will have my working of analytical procedures in my file. Working of analytical procedures, results of analytical procedure. I have something in my file. I hope audit firms, if any one of you is in the audit firms have those writing pads, and those writing pads is with the auditor, and the auditor keeps writing things on the writing pad, and he then teared the page. He teared the page and puts that in the working paper file. Yes, exactly. Please, copy of analytical procedure. No, if something has been done by the auditor, how can it have a copy? Osama Sabir. If you do something yourself, then it will have some results. If you take something from the management, it will have copy. If you take something from the management, you will have copyright. And if you do something yourself, you will have results of that. Asim Iqbal, it's unreliable in what context? Not getting your question. Please, can you clarify that? Evidence from management is not reliable. Obviously, a lot of evidence comes from management. Obviously, you cannot do audit if the management does not provide you evidence. If you need to bargain between management and the third party, I'll bargain on the third party. But how much evidence will I get from the third party? Very minimalistic. Most of the time, the evidence comes from the management. Management provides you evidence. How can you do audit just trusting the third party? How many things the management have in their record rooms? So you need to understand the importance of management. If I need to bargain between a management and a third party, obviously I'll give emphasis to third party. But what if the third party cannot provide me evidence in so many areas? If I talk about the depreciation of fixed assets, if I talk about the finance cost, if I talk about the calculation of the finance cost, the evidence has to come from the management, right? It cannot come from the third party. 100% evidence cannot come from the third party, right? Management is a source of getting evidence. Okay, please just hold your questions for 5 minutes. I'm just taking a wrap up, and let me see if I give you a clear picture, and then I'll look at the chat window for your questions. So just concentrate for 5 minutes. Is this thing clear to everyone? Yes, I'll be teaching you additional information, Muhammad Amir. Don't worry about that. I'll be coming to that as well. I need to take things one by one. I can look at your anxiousness of students. You're just confusing many things together. My purpose is just to keep things within columns now. If I say review the board minutes, if I say recalculate the amortization, if I say discuss with management, if I say analyze the increase, these are all procedures, right? But if I say copy of the board minutes, if I say results of the recalculation, if I say results of the discussion, if I say results of the AP, they all start becoming evidence. Sharmila Siddiqui, extracts can be used when, hold, but we need more practice. Yes, Azimullah, practice is something which you have to do before 5th of March. I'm coming down to practice as well, but that's exactly what you have to do. When you learn the concept, you need to apply the concept. So you need to do the practice. All my practice is supported with my answers even. So they will be guiding you. They will be guiding you in terms of how to write things up. Okay, no, evidence and procedure questions are not linked, Amaduddin. They come separately. I was just doing an exercise. If I think of a procedure, I can think of an evidence. So if you know how to make a procedure, you can easily make an evidence in the exam paper as well. Or if you know how to make an evidence, you can easily make a procedure. Because what you need to do, you need to add a verb to make it a procedure, and you need to add a tangible to make it an evidence. So I can just flip the side of the picture. At one flip, I can see a procedure. On the next flip, I can see the evidence. So put a verb and it becomes a procedure. Put a tangible thing and it becomes evidence. Okay, one last thing. See my list here on the screen. I have made a comprehensive examples of many things which has been in the past paper. I had tried making a column, procedure, and evidence. If I say review the board minutes, I'll say copy of the board minutes. Is that true? If I say review the fixed asset register, then if I say copy of the register, it sounds very illogical. Register by sense means something very voluminous. So if I say register, I'll say extract of the register. See, copy can come with documents, copy like lease agreement, copy like loan agreement, copy like board minutes. I can use copy with so many things. I can say copy of the lease agreement. I can say copy of the loan agreement. I can say copy of the bank statement. But when I say fixed asset register, or when I say cash book, does it looks good? I say copy of the cash book. Right? Can we say copy of the cash book? Does it seem sensible? Does it seem sensible to say copy of the cash book? Does it seem illogical? Does it seem illogical? So with a book and a register, what will I say? I'll say extracts of the register, extract of the book. Okay, suppose if I'm making a procedure, review the breakup of operating expense. Breakup of operating expense. Now, breakup is something which the management provides to the auditor themselves. But the breakup cannot have a copyright, because breakup is something the management gives to you. So you cannot say copy of the breakup. Rather, you will directly say breakup of operating expense. Breakup is tangible, right? Breakup is tangible. Breakup of operating expense. See, we are using the word copy, we are using the word extract, we are using the word nothing, breakup of operating expense. Is that breakup of operating expense point clear to everyone? Because breakups are given to the auditor by the management, right? So we cannot say copy of the breakup, we'll say breakup of the operating expense. We'll not write anything before that. Okay, next, review the draft SOFP. Now obviously SOFP and SOCI is with the auditor review them. Obviously management provides the SOFP and SOCI to the auditor. So I cannot say copy of the SOFP. I cannot say copy of the SOCI because that's something given to the auditor by the management. So what will I say? Draft SOFP, draft SOFP, draft SOCI. Draft means something which is initial. Obviously, the audit is going on. So during the audit process, you get a draft. At the end of the audit, the financial statements are adjusted and it becomes the actual financial statements. So draft, during the process of the audit, when you're gathering evidence, how can things be actual? They're all draft because adjustment process is still going on. Okay, circularize the confirmation letter. Suppose you're sending a confirmation letter to a third party. Circularize is a verb. So when you circularize a confirmation letter to the third party, I cannot say copy of the confirmation letter because confirmation letter belongs to the auditor. Everyone agrees to that? Confirmation letter belongs to the auditor. So will I write the word copy of the confirmation letter? Circularizing means posting. Aksa Zahid. To circularize means to post because the confirmation letter is posted. Courier, it goes to the courier company. Circularize means posting. I'm getting a lot of questions which are just lower the level of P7, right? Circularizing means what, Aksa Zahid? Circularize the confirmation letter. So when you put a confirmation letter, will I say copy of the confirmation letter? The confirmation letter, Azimullah, but I hope you have given the F8 paper. Confirmation letter is a letter you send to a third party and you ask the third party to tell the auditor how much they need to pay, how much they need to receive, debtor, creditors. It is a letter which goes to the bank. It is a letter which goes to the customer. Quite an illogical question at this level of P7, Azimullah, but kindly explain what confirmation letter is. Confirmation letter obviously is a letter which you send to the third party, and the third party then reply through the letter and say, well, we will not say a copy of the confirmation letter, right? We'll directly say confirmation letter because it belongs to the auditor. Okay, if I say obtain a written representation or if I say request a written representation. Now written representation is something which comes original to the auditor. If I am making my file, I'll not say copy of the written representation because the written representation has been given to me by the management. So I will directly say written representation. I will not say copy of the written representation. Okay, then the other thing, discuss with management. I've just told you, discuss with management means results of discussion, recalculate means results of recalculation, analyze means results of analysis, review the disclosure note. Suppose if the auditor is looking at a disclosure note of a contingent liability, so review the disclosure note is a procedure, right? I review the disclosure note, but when I need to write an evidence for a disclosure note, I'll say draft disclosure note, because if the SOFP is draft, if the SOCI is draft, then the disclosure note has to be draft because the disclosure note is part of the SOCI and SOFP. So if I say draft SOFP, then I have to say draft disclosure note. Okay, spend one more minute on this. See the column of evidence. Either the evidence starts with copy, or the evidence starts with extract, or the evidence starts directly with something like a breakup. You cannot write copy of breakup. You have to be direct breakup. SOFP and SOCI, you need to start with draft. Confirmation letter, direct. Written representation, direct. Result of recalculation, results of discussions, and so on and so forth. Okay, is that clear to everyone? Is that clear to everyone? Are you getting some sense out of the column 1 and column 2? Yes, cash book, Ahsan Khan. Cash book would be extracts of cash book. because with book you cannot use the word copy. Okay, let's make one final exercise before taking the namaz break. Okay, now that means when I am writing evidence in exam paper, I can start writing evidence with something starting with copy of, fill in the blank. Copy of so many things, right? Copy of board minutes, copy of lease agreements, copy of loan agreements, copy of bank statements. Second, I can write in the exam paper extracts of book, extract of register, extract of book, extract of register, right? Third, draft, fill in the blank. Draft what? What should be draft? If I'm writing an evidence, what should be draft? Yes, the draft would be the financial statements. The draft would be the disclosures. Anything which is part of the financial statement, right? Draft SOFP, draft SOCI. Okay. Number fourth, when will I write results of? Results of, when will I write that? I'll write results of when? Results of what? Osama Sabir, yes. Discussion, good. Results of, sir, in case of legal correspondence, can we use extracts of legal correspondence? Yes, that's fine. Extracts of legal correspondence, that's good enough to use. Agree, Muhammad Hussain. Okay, results of what? Either results of discussions, results of recalculations, and results of analytical procedures. Results of analytical procedures. Okay, so if I'm writing evidence, I'll say copy of. Is that clear to everyone? Copy of. Just a quick 2 minutes. We're going to break. I need quick yes, no. Everyone clear with copy of? Everyone clear with extracts of? Is everyone clear with draft? When to use draft? Okay, is everyone clear when to use results of? Results of? Okay, so you know in what conditions will you use the word results? Results of? Okay, good. Okay, one final exercise. When I'm writing evidence, confirmation letter, will I write anything before the confirmation letter? Will I write anything before the confirmation letter? No. Perfect, no. Perfect, no. Will we write anything before the confirmation letter? No. Will I write anything before the written representation? Written representation, will I write anything before that? No. Okay. Will I write anything before the breakups? Breakups of anything? Breakups of anything? Will I write anything before that? No. Okay, so that's perfect. That is the summary. With a confirmation letter, I'll use nothing. With a written representation, I'll use nothing. With the breakups, I'll use nothing. I'll use the word results. I use the word extracts. I use the word draft. I use the word copy. Does that sum up the evidence? Does that sum up the clear picture of evidence? Is everyone clear how to write the column of evidence? Yes, Amaduddin Mughal, the three in front of your screens, you will not use the word copy because they are coming to the auditor in original. Yes, just need a practice now, Muhammad Umar. Agree with that. I'm just moving to that now. That's the last thing left now. Okay, Asim Iqbal, thank you so much for the appreciation. I hope everyone is into a clear concepts now. Okay, that leads us to a final picture now. Let's go down to exam paper. I still have 5 minutes for a namaz break, so let's utilize those 5 minutes, and then I leave you with the exam question. In between the namaz break, you can continue to read the exam paper. Okay. Okay, let's first quickly do a type 1 question. See this type 1 question in front of you. Can everyone see this question 2 of December 14? Question 2, December 14, which is a typical question on evidence. See, go down and see the requirements. See the requirements. What it says. The requirement says comment on the matters. You know what matters are? So matters are what? Tell me. Matters are? Matters are M T R. Okay, and explain the evidence. Explain the evidence you should expect to find in the working papers. So evidence is either a copy, evidence is either a result, evidence is either a extract, evidence is either a copy, results, extract, evidence is either a draft, evidence is either a breakup, evidence is either a letter, confirmation letter. You just got it right. So do you know exactly what is to be done for 25 marks? You need to focus on the matters MTR. You know, comment on the matter, MTR, and explain the evidence. So the moment you look at this question in exam paper, would you start recalling what evidence is? Would you start recalling what evidence means? Copy, results, extracts, draft, breakup, letter. Everyone agrees with that? Okay, so once you know the question, you have 25 marks now. Let's prepare, and you will keep reading within the namaz break, and we'll be resuming after 10 minutes, but just currently going on with it. Now, once you know the requirement, there are 3 parts here, A, B, C. MTR means material, treatment, and risk, right? Perfect, Madhuddin. A, B, C. Now, how many marks we have for A? We have 12 marks. Now, for 12 marks, what we have to do? We have to do 12 marks in terms of the 12 marks needs to be done in terms of what? The 12 marks needs to be done in terms of the matters, and the 12 marks needs to be done in terms of the evidence. So we have 12 marks, right? 12 marks for 12 marks to be used for matters and evidence, again flexible. If you write 7 matters, then you write 5 evidences. If you write 8 matters, then you write 4 evidences. If you write 6 matters, then you write 6 evidences. You need to balance your 12 marks. Examiner is not saying 50% of the marks is for evidence, 50% of the marks is for meta. No, examiner is saying you have 12 marks, do whatever you want to do. So 12 marks. If you write more matters, then you write less evidences. If you write more evidences, you write less matters. But it cannot be 0. You write 12 matters and 0 evidences? No. There have to be some matters and some evidences, but you can be flexible. You can write more and less and more, but you cannot say 0. I hope you're getting my point, right? Matters and evidence for 12 marks. You can balance them, that's good. You can write more matters and less evidence. You can write the vice versa, but you cannot write all evidences and 0 matters. So 12 marks is your target, right? The way you want to utilize it. Okay, now we're just taking a quick namaz break. 10 minutes, we'll be back, and I'll be on this question. In the meantime, those of you who are not going off the namaz break, please keep reading this question. See if you can find the MTR from part A, B, and C, and see if you can do an exercise on MTR on the part A, B, C, and the evidences. I'll be coming back. We'll be doing this question from 8:25 onwards. We're taking a namaz break now. Okay, I've put this question in front of you, right? We are taking a namaz break, and post namaz break will start in 10 minutes. It's 8:15 Pakistan Standard Time. We'll be resuming at 8:25 Pakistan Standard Time, and the agenda would be to complete this question, which is on type 1. And towards the last 15 minutes of the session, we'll take the sufficiency and appropriateness of evidence. And if something is left, that will be deferred to the day for tomorrow. In the first 15-20 minutes, if anything left on sufficiency and appropriateness, because I have to give weightage to that even, so I'll be doing that in the first 15-20 minutes tomorrow. But I hope we will start a question on sufficiency towards the last 15 minutes or 20 minutes of the session today, after working on matters and evidences. Okay, we're going off now for namaz break. 10 minutes, right? Be back 8:25. Okay, welcome back to the session post namaz break into the last part of the day 3 webinar. The focus is on the practice material and the past papers, and anything left would be carried forward to the start of day 4 tomorrow. Okay, let's go back to the question we were on. And in terms of the question, let's start the exercise. Now, in terms of the question we were on, the Francis group. Okay, let me open it once again. Okay, we were down onto the question, which was the Francis group. We were looking at this question, and in terms of this question, we were looking for that we need to work on methods and evidence in the working paper file. So let's see how can we find them from the given case study. Okay. Now we have 12 marks, right? And I just told you prior to the break, these 12 marks are flexible. We can use them at our own flexibility. You can write methods, you can write evidence. You need to write both of them, but how much would you be writing? One depends upon you. Okay, let's go back. MTR, methods. An 80% equity shareholding in Teapot Company was acquired on the 1st of August. Goodwill on the acquisition of 27 million was calculated at that date and remains recognized as an intangible asset at the year end. Now, can we see that goodwill value $27 million? So we will find the materiality of $27 million, the goodwill. Yes. So the very first thing you need to identify that this $27 million of the goodwill needs to be accounted for, and you need to identify that this $27 million is to be converted into the goodwill, right? I'm just putting an emphasis. I'll go back to the presentation and I'll start writing in the answer. So the very first thing you need to do is that you need to work on the $27 million goodwill, which was basically the M. Now, obviously, it says the goodwill is recognized as this at the same value at the year end, even though we acquired the company almost a year ago. So it's almost like 1 year, and we have not tested the goodwill for impairment. That means we have a treatment. The treatment says that the goodwill should be reviewed for impairment once every year, as per IAS 38. So goodwill should be reviewed for impairment once every year, right? So the goodwill has been reviewed for impairment here. It has been held at the same value. So we had the T, and then we have the R. If the goodwill has been held at the same value, there is a risk that the goodwill could be overstated. So the M is the goodwill. The goodwill has an M, right? $27 million. And the goodwill has a treatment that every year, the goodwill should be reviewed for impairment. Now, because it has been held at the same value, that means it could be overstated. So that means in terms of my first 3 marks, if I build my first 3 marks there, I have the first 3 marks in terms of my first 3 marks is on the M. The M was $27 million. And I found the materiality, which you have responded, student, 6%. So 6% is the materiality of the goodwill. Thus, it is material. Then what I found next, the treatment. The treatment was that the goodwill should be reviewed for impairment every year. Goodwill should be reviewed for impairment every year. Goodwill should be reviewed for impairment every year. That's the treatment. But again, that was not carried out. That means the risk is that the goodwill could be overstated. The goodwill could be overstated. Now, how much marks am I getting for that MTR out of the 12 marks? Out of the 12 marks, I'm getting 3 marks, right? Perfect. The M, the 27 million, 1. The treatment, the goodwill should be reviewed for impairment every year as per IAS 38, 1. And the risk, the goodwill could be overstated, carries 1. So perfect, 3 marks, right? Out of the 12 marks. So that's the first exercise. So let's go back and see exactly what was the next case. Now, I'm not currently working on evidence, right? I'll be coming to that in next 2 minutes. Now, the examiner has shown the working of the goodwill here, right? The working of the goodwill has been shown here, and the goodwill is $27 million. The next thing, it says a loan of $60 million. A loan of $60 million was taken to finance the acquisition. Now, to finance the acquisition of this company, you took a loan of a $60 million. Ujala Khalil, yes, you can see my answers writing this much, or do we have to elaborate? It's more or less the same. It's just about making a sentence. It's just about making a sentence. M is a sentence. T can be like 2 to 3 lines, and R is just like a sentence. Right, the impairment of the asset, the impairment of the goodwill is being discussed in IAS 38. The impairment of the goodwill is discussed in IAS 38. Even if you quote IAS 36, that's fine. And even if you don't quote a standard, that itself is fine. Okay, $60 million of the loan. Should we find the materiality of the $60 million loan? Should we find the M? Yes. How much is that? 13.3%, right? Good answers. So a loan of $60 million was taken. Now, if we have taken a loan, let's find the treatment. Should we account for this loan under the IFRS 9? Should we ensure that the loan is being recorded initially at its cost and the loan is then held at the amortized cost basis, being a financial liability? Is that true? Yes. So should we initially record the loan at its cost and thereafter we should record it on an amortized cost basis? So we should write the treatment of the loan as per IFRS 9. I have given you my summaries of accounting standards on the WhatsApp group. I hope you can see that. And yes, the classification of the loan between short-term and long-term. That's a good answer, Kamran Nazir. So a loan of a $13.3 million, then the loan should be held at an amortized cost basis. And obviously the loan has to be classified between short-term and long-term. The loan is to be repaid in 20 years. So it has to be classified between short-term and long-term. What's the risk? The risk is you might not classify the loan appropriately. So the current liabilities or the non-current liabilities would be under and overstated. Agree with that? So if we do not do the proper classification of the loan, then the current liabilities or the non-current liabilities could be under and overstated. Is that a good risk? Yes, effective interest charged to P&L. That's good, Imran Nazir. How much? The next thing it says the loan carries a premium of 5 million. That is another treatment. I can tell examiner that the loan is $60 million. The $60 million has a materiality, but I can see another value, $5 million premium. So should I find the materiality of the premium even? Should I find the materiality of the premium? So premium has to be amortized. Premium have to be amortized over the 20 years. So premium has to be amortized over the 20-year means, yes, the calculation of the loan will give you marks. That's a good enough accounting treatment. So will I be justifying the premium materiality, everyone? Yes and no? Will I be justifying the materiality of the premium? Yes, because it's a value of a $5 million. So you will find the materiality of the premium. And what's the accounting treatment of the premium? The premium needs to be amortized. The premium needs to be amortized over the 20 years. So your finance cost would be how much? Your finance cost will be 6% plus the amortization of the premium. Amortization of the premium. You need to find the premium materiality on the profit. You need to find the premium materiality on the profit, because premium will be amortized and it will hit the profitability. So premium materiality has to come on the profit. So is everyone clear with that? If I go back to my presentation, we found the M for goodwill, we found the T for goodwill, we found the R for goodwill. We made 3 marks, right? If I take the next scenario, now we had a loan, right? So we have a loan M, we have a materiality of the loan, $60 million. So we got 1 mark for that. See, we had a treatment of the loan. Either we write the treatment of IFRS 9 or we write the treatment of a classification. Any one of them. Either we write the classification treatment or we write the IFRS 9 treatment. And then we write the risk. The risk can be the wrong classification. The risk can be the wrong classification. So can we get 3 marks from loan? Everyone agrees with that? No, Salahuddin, no issues if we don't mention IFRS 9. No issues with that. No issues with that. So everyone agrees with that. We're getting an MTR on loan as well. And we can get a MTR on premium. Can a premium be converted to MTR? Premium had $5 million. So can we find the materiality of the premium? 1 mark. Then we can write the treatment of the premium, that the premium needs to be amortized. And what's the risk? If the premium is not amortized, then what's the risk? If the premium is not amortized, then what's the risk? Yes, Mohammed Sundeed, your approach towards risk question and the evidence question would remain the same because it has both MTR. So that would remain the same. That would remain the same. So if the premium is not amortized, then the finance cost will be understated because the premium is part of the finance cost, right? So the finance cost is understated. Finance cost may be understated. Perfect, Amaduddin Mughal. So see how many marks have we taken? Loan carried 3 marks, premium carried 3 marks, goodwill carried 3 marks. Out of the 12, have we taken 9 marks now? Yes, profit overstated. Agree. Yasin Khan, Fahim Ahmed, profit overstated. Liability also understated. Perfect. Fahad Shabir. But is everyone agree? Have we taken 9 marks? MTR for loan, MTR for premium, MTR for goodwill. So let's go back to the question. If I go back to the question, now we had 12 marks. Out of the 12, how many have we taken? 9. Now let's go on evidence. Let's go on evidence. Now if I see the same question for evidence, you need to justify me something very quickly now. An 80% equity shareholding was acquired. What evidence will I have here? 80% equity shareholding was acquired. What evidence will I have here? Yes, I will have a copy of the purchase agreement. Perfect. 80% equity shareholding was acquired. So I will have the copy of the purchase agreement. Okay, I'll be writing that onto the PowerPoint file. The 80% shareholding was acquired. How much was the purchase consideration? I paid how much? I paid 75 million for acquiring. Did I pay $75 million for acquiring it? So what evidence will I have for 75,000? I'll have a bank statement, copy of the bank statement. Perfect. So $75,000 will come from where? $75,000 will come from the copy of the bank statement. Okay, so fair value of the non-controlling interest. From where will I get the fair value of non-controlling interest? What evidence will I have on the fair value of non-controlling interest? Active market, okay. Fahad Shabir. From where will I get the fair value non-controlling interest? The stock market quotations, the stock exchange quotations, the share prices. So should I say copy of the share prices? No, I'll say the share prices directly. From an expert, yes, Amaduddin Mughal, that's even fine. From an expert, we can even have the share prices from the stock market. Yes, the fair value of the identifiable net assets, fair value of the identifiable net assets can come from the due diligence report, because normally when you acquire a company, you perform a due diligence report. See the evidence. The company was acquired. Can we have an evidence for that? we paid $75,000 or we paid $75 million. Can I have a bank statement for that? Then the fair value of the non-controlling interest, can I have an evidence for fair value of non-controlling interest? Then can I have a fair value of the net assets, the due diligence report? So can there be many evidences from just the acquisition? Go down, loan. Can I take evidence on the loan taken? Can I take the copy of the loan agreement? So the copy of the loan agreement can work as an evidence for me, right? And can I do the results of recalculation? Results of recalculation for the finance cost? Is that true? Results of recalculation? Yes. Copy of the bank statement to verify the receipt of the loan. And can I go down with results of recalculation? Is that true? Results of recalculation for the finance cost? Yes. Okay. So that means 12 marks, right? 12 marks. And technically we got 9 marks from methods. Now, technically if we got 9 marks from methods, technically if I got 9 marks from methods, and I need to go down with evidence now. How many marks I left with evidence? Just 3 marks, right? But I can make more than that just for the knowledge sake, right? Not for the exam paper. For exam, you'll only make 3. See, we acquired the company, so we can have a copy of purchase agreement because we acquired a company, copy of purchase agreement. We paid $75 million, so we can have a copy of the bank statement for what we paid, copy of the bank statement for $75 million paid. Again, you can see my standard answer attached. Fair value, we can take copy of an expert report or copy of the due diligence report. Copy of the due diligence report, DD report, the due diligence report. The copy of the due diligence report that will confirm the fair value of net assets. You have taken a loan. Yes, evidence 2 will have a reason, right? Evidence 2 will have a reason. We have taken a loan, copy of the loan agreement. Copy of loan agreement for the loan taken. You must have recalculated the finance cost, so results of recalculations. Results of recalculation for the finance cost. See, just in quick, we wrote 5. We need 3. But I just looked at the case so casually. There are so many evidences when you go into the case. But just looking it casually, I need to get 3 marks. I still wrote 5. Are you all getting some sense that evidence has to come from the case? You will read the case and you will judge, okay, what I need here. You will read the case and you will judge what I need here. You will read the case and you will judge, do you need a copy? You will read the case and you will judge that, do you need results? You will read the case and you will judge that what sort of evidence you need here. So we need a copy of purchase agreement. We need a copy of bank statement. We need a copy of the due diligence report. We need a copy of the loan agreement. We need the results of recalculation. So is everyone clear on those 12 marks? Yes, we need to write the evidence, reason, Abu Bakr Anwar. Copy of purchase agreement to confirm what? Copy of the purchase agreement to confirm that the company was acquired at a consideration of $75 million. So you have to write reasons. You have to write reasons. Is everyone clear with the first 12 marks? Does everyone know how to identify the MTR? So can you investigate the MTR in the B and C part? Can you do that by tomorrow? Can you do the MTR on the B and C part? And can you find the copy of something or results of something in the B and C part? Yes, we can write the board minutes, Sharmila Siddiqui. We can write the board minutes, copy of the board minutes to confirm the acquisition, approval of the acquisition. Perfectly with that. So B and C, I want you to do the MTR on B and C. My answer is attached. So do see my answer for MTR and the evidences. See how you will go, how will you go with the formatting? How will you format the answer? So you should know the formatting of the answer and you should know the way of presenting the answer. But is everyone clear with MTR and evidences? Type 1 question. So you know the way of going with type 1 question, everyone? So can you handle the type 1 question? If the examiner asks you comment on the matters, you know exactly what you need to comment on. So you know exactly what you need to comment on, yes. And then you should know evidence is what. You should know how to write evidence. I think this is a scoring opportunity. This is a scoring opportunity. Okay, I'll be mentioning tomorrow once I start day 4, okay, what practice material you can have for evidence questions. I have already given them on my slides for home assignments. That I think I have 3 questions on my session and 2 questions of home. 5 questions is a sufficient practice. I hope most of you will take evidence question in exam, particularly if it gets to type 1. Is everyone confident about type 1? If everyone thinks they can score a lot on type 1? Can you know exactly what is to be done on type 1? Okay, that's good. That's good. I hope you would go down with it. It's such an easy question, right? Comment on the matters, explain the evidence. It's such easy thing. You just need to find them out from a case study, and definitely you can score so good marks, right, on this particular scenario. Okay, one last thing quickly. I'll be taking this carry forward into the day 4 tomorrow is to work on the type 2. And then the type 2 is very important for the attempt coming ahead, March 18. So let's see. When the examiner asks you comment on the sufficiency, what will you do? Let's take a question on that. So I'm exiting from the type 1. Any questions on type 1? Any issues on type 1s? Please keep posting. Please keep posting that on the WhatsApp group. Okay, exit from the type 1. It's now time for type 2. December 16 exam is for the type 2, and this is a very important question for March 18 exams. So you need to be realistic of preparing it for March 18 exams. So let's start exercising a type 2 question. Let's see what is exactly in a type 2 question. Now, what I told you that the type 2 question, what I have told you in the type 2 question is that Asim Iqbal, I'll add you to the WhatsApp group. Can you send me your request separately? I'll share a link so that you can make a happy face rather than a sad face. I'll add you to the WhatsApp group. Don't worry about that. Okay, let's do the type 2 question quickly. Let's understand the basics. The type 2 question is asking us comment on the sufficiency and appropriateness of the evidence obtained. Can you see that? So was that the type 2 question? Was that the type 2 question? Right? So everyone knows what sufficiency and appropriateness means. Do you know what sufficiency means? I just made that very clear. And do you know what appropriateness means? So is the examiner asking us comment on the sufficiency and appropriateness of the audit evidence obtained? Right? Perfect. Okay. The second, and how much marks every sufficiency comment and every appropriateness comment carries? How much marks comment on the sufficiency and appropriateness carry? One mark per comment. 1 mark per comment, right? So if you comment like 3, you get 3 marks. If you comment like 4, you get 4 marks. Okay, the next thing. See, in a question, he's asking comment on the sufficiency, and then he's saying recommend further procedures. Recommend further procedures. Now you know how to write procedures, right? You know how to write procedures. You know procedure starts with verbs: review, analyze, discuss, recalculate. So if the examiner is asking you recommend further procedures, can you write procedures? You know how to write them? Okay. Last, explain the methods. Explain the methods which should be included in a report in accordance with ISA 265, communicating deficiencies in internal controls to those charged with governance. Explain the matters, not the MTR matter, right? Don't get confused. Yeah, the examiner is saying what? The examiner is saying explain the matters which should be included in a report in accordance with ISA 265, Communicating deficiencies. So what this report focus on? This report focus on deficiencies, right? So explain the matters which should be included in the report. What matters should be included in this report? Need answers. What matters should be included in the report? The deficiencies. See the question. It says, explain the matters which should be included in a report in accordance with ISA 265, communicating deficiencies in internal control. So what are we communicating through this report? Deficiencies in internal controls, right? So that means in the first part, I need to comment on the sufficiency. In the second part, I need to work on the procedures. In the third part, I need to work on the deficiencies. So that means this question has three parts, right? 1, 2, 3. This question has sufficient appropriate audit evidence. I need to comment on the sufficient appropriate audit evidence. Then I need to write procedures. And then I need to write deficiencies. Such an easy question. You write a deficiency, you get marks. You write a procedure, you get marks. You comment on the sufficiency. You comment on the sufficiency and appropriateness of the evidence, and you get marks. So how many things we have to do in this question? 3, right? Everyone agrees? 3 things. So is that clear to everyone? Now let's see what is to be done. See how many marks we have here. First part A, how many marks we have? 9, right? The second part carries 7. The second part carries 7, capital expenditure. The third part carries payroll expense, another 9. So for 9 marks, how many things we have to do? 3. For 7 marks, how many things we need to do? Again, 3. And for the remaining 9 marks, how many things we need to do? 3. Now let's see what is to be done quickly. Now, if I look at these 9 marks, for 9 marks, I need to work on sufficient appropriate audit evidence. I need to work on procedures, and I need to work on deficiency. Every deficiency will give you 1 mark. Every procedure will give you 1 mark. Every comment on sufficiency will give you 1 mark. It's such a good scoring opportunity. So suppose you write a comment on the sufficiency, you will get 1. You write a procedure, you get 1. You write a deficiency, you get 1. Balance. Suppose I get 2 deficiencies. Suppose I read this question. One last exercise in this last 5 minutes. I have 9 marks. Let's see, I read the question and you tell me something. Due to the planned disposal of one of the Thurman Company's factory site, the property and associated assets have been classified as held for sale in the financial statements. A manual journal has been posted by the finance director. Can a journal entry be posted by a finance director? Can a journal entry be posted by a finance director? Is that something of a weakness in a company? Is that a deficiency in a company, that the finance director is wasting his time posting a manual journal? Finance director is not getting a salary, right, for posting a manual journal. Finance director is getting a salary that he should take decisions about future. So should I take a manual journal posted by a finance director as my deficiency number 1? And will that give me 1 mark? Will that give me 1 mark? Yes, it is a deficiency, right? Okay. I'm reading from the 4th line. The finance director asked the senior to check the manual journal before it was posted, because there being no one with relevant knowledge to do so in the Thurman Company. Is that another weakness, that in the company there is no one with the relevant knowledge to post a manual journal entry? So is that another deficiency, that there is no one in the company to post a relevant journal entry? So how many deficiencies? 1 being the director posting the journal, and then there is no one in the company with the relevant knowledge. So are these two deficiencies which I should tell the management? So how many marks out of 9 will I take on deficiencies? 2. So how much is remaining? 7. 7 marks remaining, right? Okay, the next paragraph. The planned disposal was discussed with the management. A brief note has been put in the working paper stating that the management opinion to classify the factory as held for sale is correct. The manual journal has been arithmetically checked by a different member of the audit team and the amount agreed back to the non-current asset register. Do you think the evidence gathered in the last paragraph is sufficient or appropriate? No. For how many reasons? Let's find. The planned disposal was discussed with management and a brief note has been put in the working paper to say that it was correct. Can we just alone discuss with, is discussion alone relevant? Is discussion alone appropriate? Can we just rely on discussion? Can we just rely on discussion? No. We should have checked the board minutes. We should have done something on IFRS 5. Did we did anything on IFRS 5? We just discussed with management. So is discussion alone something sufficient? No. And then the manual journal has been arithmetically checked. Just arithmetical check, is that sufficient? Just arithmetical check, is that sufficient? So I think there are a lot of mistakes in the last paragraph that we only discussed with the management and then we only arithmetically checked. Did we did anything on IFRS 5? Did we check that the asset is available for sale? Did we did anything that asset is available for sale? Did we did anything that the management is actively marketing the asset for its sale? No. So had we gathered good evidence in the last paragraph? Had we gathered good evidence in the last paragraph? No. So there are weaknesses, right? There are weaknesses, there are evidences, issues in the last case, and then we have to write procedures. I'll prefer, with just running short of time, I'll resume that tomorrow with the recap session. I'll spend another 15-20 minutes on the same question tomorrow. So please, if anyone is interested to know how to solve this question, the first 20-25 minutes of the session tomorrow will be very important, because in the first 20-25 minutes, I'll be doing the part A, B, and C so that you have a better idea of the sufficiency, you have a better idea of procedures, you have a better idea of deficiency. Please do read this question. Please do see my answer. And I hope you got some benefit from the session today, the day 3 of the webinar. I hope your concepts, yes, same time tomorrow. I hope your concepts have clarified on procedures, evidence, how to find them from a case study. I hope all of you are reasonably satisfied with the session today. I hope you are clear with the concept building between procedures and evidence. I'll put one good half an hour tomorrow on the same. Right, so I'll be looking off after this question for half an hour in the beginning of the session tomorrow from 6 p.m. Pakistan time to 6:30 p.m. Pakistan time. And then after, I'll shift myself to the topic 4, which is other assignments. But please read this question, please solve this question, and have a good look at this question before the session starts tomorrow. Thank you so much for being part today on the day 3 of the webinar. Please implement what you have learned, and your response and your enthusiasm was fabulous indeed. And thank you so much for those lovely comments. My purpose is to help you out passing P7, and that's exactly what I would like to see when your results are out. Okay, thank you so much. That's the end for the day 3. We'll meet tomorrow, same time, 6 to 6:30.